excited to have James Alberson here today with us. James is part of Sandler Coaching or Sandler Training in the greater Seattle area. He's been helping sales leaders be effective with their sales teams for over 11 years. James, you're a veteran here when it comes to coaching and developing people and strategy. We're excited to have you.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into it. We're going to focus our time today on you've hired a salesperson and now you got to manage that person to performance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
James, what are some of the key things that you really focus on with a sales leader as they're trying to manage and develop their teams?
So that's a great question. And it really all starts, as far as we're concerned with Sandler, with your onboarding plan, what the onboarding looks like. You know, too often companies and managers, I like to say they're woefully deficient in properly onboarding their new people. And what do I mean by that? You know, throwing them a manual, the company manual, and giving them their list of accounts and kicking them out the door and say, go make money. That's not onboarding. You know, onboarding really should be anywhere from a 1 to 3 month process when it's all said and done. Sadly, and I don't have the information in front of me, but a couple of years ago, a survey was done, and the vast majority of companies had a 1-day, onboarding program. A very small percentage had up to 3 months, and so at least one month. And what do we mean by that? Basically, how are you setting them up for success? Managing for performance starts with setting the right expectations and having a structure so that they are progressing along as they should be. You're verifying that they're learning the things they need to learn when they need to learn them, that they have the capability to do the things necessary to perform the job well. And you can't expect them to be 100% proficient at everything on the first day or even the first week. That's crazy. And so how are you breaking that down? How do you have this plan so that at the end of each week, they know what they need to be doing each day, each week? What are you testing them on? Let's just give you an example in sales. At the end of the first week, one of the things that they should be tested on is how well they have and can execute their 30-second commercial. That's what salespeople do. I have to get your initial interest, and it's not about bringing out all my shiny objects and saying what I can do, but whatever your commercial is, how well are they at doing that? If they can't do that, then how do you expect them to get any further? But how are you verifying that they can do it, and how do they know, and when do they know that you will? So that's really where it starts. A very comprehensive onboarding plan that helps them know when to do what, when they need to know what, and also test to make sure they're there.
That's a really good point. And one of the things that we notice is a big gap is when you really don't define the role really well as an organization, then you don't necessarily have to hire for it, onboard it, and manage it. Mm-hmm. And so what you're speaking to, a lot of it is there's skills, right? Being able to do a 30-second commercial is a skill that they need to develop and verify is done well. Mm-hmm. For that member. Well, did you hire? Do you understand what you're hiring for that skill? Taught them your version of that in your onboarding, and are you reassessing that as you go with them? Absolutely. Because you want them to be exceptional in it, right?
Absolutely. If you want them to be mediocre, hey, just sit back and they'll meet your expectations.
And we're huge into pinpointing really like 10 to 15 key skills mm-hmm. that you onboard, you hire for, you onboard, and you ultimately manage all the time. It can't be a million things, mm-hmm. but there's going to be some key things that you got to hang your hat on. You know what I mean? And managers got to be able to give consistent feedback on those things and in review time. Absolutely. So the person's always progressing. I coached college football for 10 years. Every day I got to see them at practice if those skills were developing.
Exactly.
Right? And so that same application isn't brought to the business world really well.
Yeah,
That
I
info.
agree. I agree.
How about some other things, James? When you look at, all right, you're kind of post onboarding,
mhm.
and you're working with, this person, and they all got to hit their quotas.
Mm-hmm.
What are some key things that you think really help that manager manage well?
So I got great follow-up question there. So a couple things, and it really starts with when you were even in the hiring process. One of the beliefs I have is that every hiring process should have some sort of objective assessment, developmental type assessment associated with it that identifies for you the developmental areas that that individual is going to need should you hire them. Now, once you do that, you now have kind of the roadmap of where their growth is needed. So as you say, even once they're past the onboarding, how are you actually addressing those particular areas that they need to grow in. So having that roadmap is important. And really, what I also find with managers where they may be lacking is they haven't developed an individual growth plan for each particular representative. And so this is going to be the foundation, what that assessment tells you of what their growth plan should look like. Managers are concerned about them hitting their numbers. Well, okay, but there's a lot of things that go into if they're even able to. Do they have the right mindset to reach those higher levels, to be consistent with the behaviors they need to do to find and close business? And do they have even conceptually, are they the person to even pull off certain techniques or whatever it is? All those things can be determined in the assessment. Now, additional to that is you have to understand what the personal goals are of your direct reports. Not the corporate goals. You know the corporate goals, they know the company goals, but you need to understand their personal goals so you can effectively tie the achievement of those company goals to the progression and achievement of their personal goals. A lot of managers do not know what personally drives their direct reports to do that. It's not just the paycheck, it's what that paycheck represents. And the more you understand that, the more you can tailor your coaching talks and your individual meetings about performance to what matters to them.
No,
And yeah.
that's really good. And we run our business off of EOS. So when we do review, we say get it, want it, capacity to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that want it, right? That's those motivations on, can be compensation, but career pathing, personal goals, things that they want to get done.
Right.
You got to know it. You can have the best employee in the world, but if they don't want your position,
Mm-hmm.
they're not the best employee. They're not going to perform like the best employee. You need them to hit those performance numbers.
Exactly. One more thing I'll add to that, and I don't mean to usurp your next question, but the other thing that managers need to understand from the standpoint of what motivates their individual, in general, people are motivated by five different, we call them the 5 twos: motivated to do, to be, to have, to accomplish, or to be known for. And it's not necessarily one particular lane. Sometimes they overlap, but there's a driving motivator that really does affect why we do things, why we perform, why we go after certain tasks, just full bore, and why others don't matter. Some people want to be known for being the best employee. So just that employee of the month plaque that they get, man, that gives them the most satisfaction. Others couldn't care less. They want to have, I don't know, that new Tesla or whatever. So they're going to be trying to hit those numbers. And to really understand, and sometimes people don't necessarily even understand themselves, but to have that conversation with those employees to get a better sense of what's going to drive and motivate them the most. man, that's going to give a manager a leg up as well on managing for performance.
And it's so true. And if you look at it, we're big believers, and you need to understand performance, measure what matters. And then how are you driving engagement, right? How are you driving that engagement? Well, engagement comes from the two top factors. Engagement are the manager.
Mm-hmm.
So when the manager knows how to coach, to assess, to understand what motivates his people, to have that relational touch, and then job alignment. To your point, do they have the skills and capacity to do the job?
Mm-hmm.
They know when they're in the wrong seat, and they get very disengaged quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But they don't want to admit it all the time, right? And or they need development to make it the right seat.
Right.
They're just not to the level of that seat. So performance and alignment, huge, right? For managing people to the ultimate goal of why you hired them. So,
Absolutely.
well, James, really appreciated your insight today. I was really glad we could get you on the podcast, and thanks for your time.
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate you having me. Hopefully I said something worth hearing, and glad to contribute any way I can.
Awesome. Thanks, James. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care, Ben.